Greetings and welcome everyone to another episode of Karl's Spirits. And here on Karl's Spirits, this is episode 73 by the way, and here on Karl's Spirits we examine and taste America's native spirit, bourbon. And tonight we're going to be looking at Kentucky Owl. Kentucky Owl Confiscated. This is a product of Kentucky Owl, oddly enough. And it was originally formed way back in 1879 on the banks of the Kentucky River by a gentleman by the name of Charles Dedman. And his product was known as the Wise Man's Bourbon. For many years, Dedman ran a very profitable enterprise at his distillery. And it went all the way up until about 1916, and then we have trouble. And the trouble was that federal agents seized Dedman's entire stock of bourbon and moved it to a warehouse in Frankfort, Kentucky for safekeeping. That's right, they stole his bourbon. There's where the confiscated comes from. So we're going to add another layer to the story now. So this bourbon, confiscated from Charles Dedman, held in a warehouse. The warehouse catches on fire shortly thereafter, and it is completely destroyed. However, there's not an explosion. It's not a big combustible fire as you would expect from a lot of bourbon, but still fire, warehouse gone, Dedman's bourbon supply gone. Now we're going to add a third layer to that story. There's all kinds of rumors about where did the bourbon go. And it is even noted on the Kentucky Owl website that one person in particular has always been liked for this big heist of Kentucky Owl bourbon from 1916. And that person, as you might guess, was the most notorious gangster, the most famous gangster in all of American history, and that was, of course, Al Capone. Supposedly Al Capone had the liquor removed, set the fire to the warehouse to cover up the theft, and he then sold the bourbon during Prohibition in Chicago speakeasies. Now, out of that story, what's really true? Well, the bourbon's gone. Dedman was never compensated. It's a great story, and it's full of intrigue and history, things I really kind of enjoy, right? But there are a few weak points here. First of all, the bourbon was supposedly seized as Prohibition began by federal agents, right? It was seized in 1916, but Prohibition didn't begin until 1920. So we're starting to see a weak spot there in the story. Second, that fire that consumed all that bourbon should have been absolutely spectacular. It should have burned bright forever. That bourbon would have been highly flammable. Nothing like that. The building, burned. A couple hours, it was done. Not a big deal. Finally, good old Al Capone. Guys, Al Capone gets the rap for everything notorious that happened in the 1920s here in the United States. Yes, Capone ran one of the largest whiskey smuggling rings in the history of Prohibition. There's nothing to say that he, couldn't have heisted this Kentucky Owl. But there is absolutely zero evidence. There's zero evidence that he had anything to do with this. So it boils down to, it's a good story attached to a bourbon that actually began production in 2014 by Dedman's great-great-grandson. Remember, bourbon, it's all about the story in many cases. The story helps sell the product. In 2014, Dixon Dedman wanted to revive his many-time great-grandfather's bourbon dreams, and he released his very first batch of Kentucky Owl back in 2014. Now, Dixon Dedman sources his bourbon from other Kentucky distilleries that have not yet been named. In 2017, Kentucky Owl was purchased by the Stoli Group. Think Stoli Vodka, if you will. And since then, there's plans from the Stoli Group to create a Kentucky Owl distillery and kind of a theme entertainment park that's kind of still in the works, apparently. So, where does this bourbon come from that Kentucky Owl uses in its bottle? There's been absolutely no confirmation of any of the rumors. Nothing has really been said one way or the other. Its source is completely unknown. So, that's the back history. Now it's time for what a lot of you are actually here for, and that's what does it taste like? So let's pour a little wee dram here of Kentucky Owl. By the way, this was provided for me by a very good friend, so I want to thank him. Thank you, sir, for loaning me his bottle of Kentucky Owl. So first of all, there is no mash bill that has been disclosed. There's absolutely no provenance whatsoever of where this juice comes from. So we don't know exactly what it is. It is bourbon, so we can assume it's 51% corn. Age, no age statement. It is thought to be more than 4 years old, but again, no real confirmation one way or the other. And it has been bottled at 96.4 proof. That's 96.4 proof. So in the glass, we have a really bright copper in the glass. It's really, really a beautiful color. Give it a little swirl, and you get some very nice, thick legs that really cling to your glass. They're fat, they're sticky. Really a beautiful product right in the glass itself. So for me, the nose is absolutely spot on bourbon. And what I mean by that, it hits what I think of as the classic bourbon profile. Lots of vanilla, lots of caramel, some brown sugar. Yes, there's even a little leather in there for those of you who like to punk me on the leather smells. And there's a touch of spice. There's not much alcohol at all on the nose. I would even say, despite all those ingredients that I just listed off, it's actually kind of a delicate smell, if you will. Let's see what it tastes like, though. That's very good. First of all, it's sweet and creamy and very smooth in the mouth. Really coats well. I use the word creamy, but actually, now that I think about it, it's creamy right in the front, and it gets kind of an oily coating toward the back. So that's kind of interesting, actually. Lots of earthy flavors here. Lots of oak, but not overly oaked. It's just a nice, good oak flavor. A little caramel and honey, and it delivers a little touch of spice toward the back. I don't want to say an explosion. It's not even a pop. It's just like, hey, there's some spice here as it goes across the very back of your palate. It's delicate, but noticeable, and it really rounds out the taste from sweet in the front to that spicy earthiness. The sweet earthiness in the front to the spicy toward the back. What really hits me, and this really kind of comes to my attention here, is that I still have a little like sugar. Okay, a lot of sweetness in this. This is a very sweet bourbon to me. It's almost like I have a little sugar coating on my lips. It's almost like a dessert bourbon in many ways. I think that's really a really cool finish for this Kentucky Owl product. And that finishes on the somewhat long side. It fades a little bit, and it leaves that hint of leather and oak, little hint of spice, but I'm still getting a lot of sweet tones. This is really an enjoyable pour. I really like that a lot, actually. This is a smooth, really good bourbon. And I enjoy the classic approach that Deadman from Kentucky Owl has taken to blend this particular bottle. I love the classic profile that he has used. I think so many people kind of, want to go out and do their own thing and have something that really separates their bottle. But in this case, I think it really took a lot of skill to blend and get a really classic profile that's very smooth and just has all those really great notes to it. Now, having said all that, I do have some issues here. And some of you who know me know I like the information too. I want to know what's in my bottle. And, I want that information. First, the old family story history is cute. But let's be real. In essence, it's a PR gimmick. It's to sell the bourbon. We know nothing about the juice in this bottle whatsoever. We know it's made in Kentucky. We know it's about 40 years old. We know it's 96.4 proof. That's all we know. We know nothing else. We don't know where it came from. We don't know what the mash bill is. We don't know anything. Now, for some people, that's perfectly fine. And there are some drinkers out there that they don't mind not having that information. They're just interested in having that drink and enjoying what they're having. That's great. If that's you, awesome. I want to know more. I like to know the provenance of what I'm having. Now, the big thing that really catches me on this drink is the price. MSRP. Now, brace yourself. Are you ready? Are you ready? MSRP is $125. Now, at $125, you can tell me what's in this bottle. I want to know where it came from for $125. So, Kentucky Owl, Stoley Group, Dixon Deadman, you have a wonderful product here. But give us some information about where it came from, for crying out loud, okay? We need more information. You can't just say, oh, here's this Kentucky juice. We're going to call it Kentucky Owl and let it go. So for $125, this should be an absolutely outstanding pour. This is a very good pour. I enjoy this a lot, but it's not outstanding, okay? If I'm paying $125, I better be getting something that's fantastic. This is good. If this was available in the $40 to $50 range, I'll buy it every day of the week if I had that much money. But it's a very affordable at that price. It's very good at that price. But $125 is just too much to ask, at least for me, on my income. And for me to swallow $125 with no information, that's just really hard for me to accept. So, how am I going to rate this? Well, just on the pour, I'm going 4.25 stars. That's 4.25 stars. It's a great, nice bourbon, and it's very reasonable. However, you factor in all the problems that I listed, no information, the price, okay? I'm going to bump it down, actually, to 3.25 stars. So I'm knocking off a complete star here for the price and the dearth of information that we have on this particular product. Some of you may not agree with me, and remember what I've always said, guys, that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. These are just my thoughts, my tastes, what I like, what I don't. Yours may be different, and that's what's really cool about the bourbon world is we can all have disagreements, and we all have our favorite products, and we can all come together and be civil to each other in the end. It's a good bottle. It is not $125. It is not that great. And so I'm going to knock off a star. The taste is great. If it was a reasonable price, yes, I would go that high mark. But instead, I'm only going to go 3.25 stars for Kentucky Owl. That's my opinion. Yours may be different, as I said. And as always, I want everyone to stay safe, peace, and happy pours.